Wow, I feel like I've been on such a journey with this series, honestly. So far, I'm not enjoying this series as much. It is really heavy. This was so good. I absolutely love this. Hey besties, thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Charlotte if you're new here. Welcome back if you are not. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in November. It was an incredible reading month. I read 12 books, which actually feels insane. Whilst working a full-time job. I did have a week of annual leave, so that obviously helped out a little bit. In terms of the books that I read, 6.5 of them I read as physical books. 2.5 of them I read as audiobook. So one of the books I have a physical copy of and I also listened to. And then I think 3 of the books I read on Kindle. I feel like that maths is what adds up. Genre breakdown, there were 7 fantasies? No. Yeah, 7 fantasies. Oh my goodness. 2 thrillers, 2 romances, and 1 memoir. Let's just jump straight into things. We're going to start by talking about 3 books in the Throne of Glass series. I feel like when we're talking about series, it's so much easier to just talk about them all together. So throughout the month, I read Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. Wow, I feel like I've been on such a journey with this series, honestly. It feels like I've read more than 3 of them. I have now finished Queen of Shadows, so maybe that's why. But yeah, it does feel like I should have read more than 3 of them. But yeah, I've enjoyed this journey so much. Each book has gotten better. I feel like the more I read, the more attached to the characters I get, which is absolutely what you want when you're reading a series, really, isn't it? So that is fantastic. Starting with Throne of Glass, so we can go through, I'm just going to talk about the ratings with this series, just because I can't remember what happens like specifically in this book and I don't want to give any spoilers away. So this one was just a plain 4 stars for me. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like overall impressed. I couldn't really tell like what we were going to be doing with the rest of the series at this point. I was like, how are we going to get like 8 books out of this? Obviously the further through we got, the clearer that became. And then Crown of Midnight ended up being a 4.75 star read for me. I really enjoyed this. I think my main kind of like qualm with it was that it kind of just got really good towards the end and like the rest of it didn't really like pull me in any kind of way. It was this book that also made me realise like that I was starting to really feel attached to the characters. I read Assassin's Blade first, so I feel like I've been with these characters for a while now. It's not like I'm brand new to them, I'm just jumping into this world, and this is only book 2. So yeah, by the end of this I was starting to feel attached to the characters. I just didn't have the 5-star feeling. But I did have the 5-star feeling with Heir of Fire, so this was a 5-star. I absolutely adored this book. I love the character journey that we see our main character Selena go on in this book, and I really liked how the transition of Crown of Midnight to this really kind of took us forward and showed us what the next kind of plots were going to be like in the next 2 books and really built the world that we were going to see. I really liked that in this that we started to see a lot of other characters' POVs, and at first like I couldn't really see how some of them were going to tie in, but kind of now, an extra book further through the series, I definitely do. And yeah, I'm really excited for what's to come. This was just absolutely perfect for me. I really like the balance of romance and like fantasy in this series. I would definitely say for like Throne of Glass is more of a fantasy series with romance, whereas ACOTAR feels more like a romantasy series. Then we come on to the other books that I read this month. So starting with one of the audiobooks that I read or listened to that I also have the physical copy of, we have Then She Was Gone by Lisa Duell. This was a really interesting thriller. It's more of like, I guess a psychological thriller. I don't really know how to explain it. It was a bit different to anything that I've read or listened to before. It wasn't super quick, but I was just like, how is all of this linking together? Like, when are we going to find out what's happened, like what the story is? So I think that kept me really locked in. As I said, I listened to the audiobooks. I was listening to whilst doing admin work, which is one of my favourite things to do at the moment, because I just find that it keeps me like really focused on what I'm supposed to be doing. So yeah, this was really good for that. And as I said, it was really interesting to see what happened. I did end up giving this a 4-star, so it was pretty good. This is about Laurel, whose daughter went missing 10 years ago at the start of the book. Her daughter was called Ellie. Ellie, the police kind of just decided that like she must have been a runaway, but when she meets, she ends up like splitting up from her husband, as like a lot of people do when their children go missing, just because like it puts a lot of strain on the relationship. But yeah, they split up. 10 years after Ellie goes missing, she ends up meeting this man, and he has a 9-year-old daughter, and the daughter feels really familiar to Laurel. So at first, like, she's not that suspicious, and then things start happening and it's a bit like, this is really strange, this is really weird. And the further through the book we get, obviously the more that comes out, the more that is revealed. And we're also seeing some things from Ellie's POV, like from when she went missing and in the lead up to her going missing. This is really weird in a lot of places. It's really interesting though. Like, I was never really sure like at any point what the full story was going to have been. So yeah, definitely a really interesting read. I would really recommend it, I think. Okay, so going back into our fantasies, I read Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book in the Caraval series. So I have read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, which is what made me want to pick these books up, because I just wanted to see what else is happening in this world. It is kind of in the same world. So far, I'm not enjoying this series as much as the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. They're interesting, but they're just not quite doing it for me, I don't think. So this I did give a 4 stars. It was good. I don't remember a lot of it, and obviously like it's so far through a series, I'm not going to talk about what it was about, but yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't, yeah, it's not my absolute favourite fantasy I've ever read. It is a really interesting, strange series. But yeah, it was a 4-star, and I am going to be continuing the series hopefully this month. Okay, and then we have another one of the audiobooks that I listen to. So I do listen to all of my audiobooks on Libby, and I picked up I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is a book that I have definitely wanted to listen to for a while, and it just so happened that it was available like instantly on my Libby, which was a huge surprise. So I don't have a rating for this because I don't like to rate memoirs. If you see it on my Fable, you'll see it has a 5 stars. That's not my rating of it. I just wanted to give it, like on Fable you can't not rate things the same as you can with Goodreads, and I didn't want to give it like a low rating, so I was like, I'd rather just give it a high rating because I did really enjoy it. I think if you grew up watching like iCarly and you're part of that generation, then I think you'll find this book really interesting and it would be a good read. Or I really enjoyed listening to it. I would definitely recommend listening to it rather than reading it, possibly. Obviously I don't know what the reading experience is like, but anyway, I really enjoyed listening to it. It is really heavy, so it does primarily deal, it is a memoir, but it is primarily focused on talking about the years that Jeanette McCurdy was struggling with an eating disorder and various eating disorders, which very sadly has been most of her life, and that is the real focus of the book itself. So if that is an issue that you find difficult and you don't want to listen to, like, or you would struggle to listen to, absolutely do not listen to this book or read this book. It is very graphic. Like, definitely do your research, look into the triggers, because I didn't. And even like talking about some of the like sexual encounters she had, she is quite graphic in speaking about that. So yeah, I would just err with caution, look up your trigger warnings, but I did really enjoy it and I think it was really insightful, and I think it's a really important book to have out in the world because yeah, it is really sad, like her story and what she went through while she was providing so much entertainment to so many other people. Okay, bit of a change of pace because we then have Sky Shade by Alex Astor, which is the 3rd book in the Lilac series. So when I picked this up, I thought it was going to be the final book in the series, and I was like, okay, like how are we doing this? Like, where are we going from here? Like, how is, like, I was getting to the kind of final 100 pages and I was like, how are we like wrapping this book up? After completing it, I did realise, I will learn, because actually it hadn't been announced by the time this book was released that there were going to be more books in the series. So I then saw that be announced. It was announced on release day, but I don't follow the author on Instagram, so then when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I like this. I didn't like it as much as the other books. I did give this a 4.5 stars. The other 2 books are 5-star reads for me. Main issues with this that are spoiler free: it felt very rushed. There was weird kind of like gaps in pacing. There is a love triangle that just feels like it's being really forced now, and that showed in the way it was written. You'd get like a really nice scene between two of the characters, and then like the next chapter or the chapter after would be like the same kind of vibe but with the other characters, and I didn't really like that. I don't feel the connection between one of the like pairings of the love triangle. So yeah, I'm just didn't love that, and yeah, didn't love the overall pacing. I feel like this book could have been longer and just kind of the pacing could have been a little bit better. I think it was a little bit rushed because the way it's written is a little bit strange. The acknowledgements are like just there, and then the dedication is on the same page as the publishing information, which I've never seen before. I don't have the hardbacks of these books, so I don't know if that's how the hardbacks are, but the paperbacks aren't. And the paper size is the same size, so it looks like all they do when they change these ones from paperback to hardback is they just change the actual binding. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to continue the series. I think there's going to be 4/5 books, so I will continue the series, but I am a little bit nervous for the final book, and I hope it doesn't end up becoming one of those series where it just keeps going beyond where it necessarily needs to go, and I hope that like everything gets wrapped up nicely basically. This is weird. I feel like because I read so many series this month, there's not really much that I can talk to you guys about. The next book, again, was part of a series. It was The Murder After the Night Before. Oh no. The next book that was part of a series was Lost in Lesode. So this is the 3rd book in the like done and dusted like Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. This was so good. I absolutely loved this. It was about Teddy and Gus, who we've kind of been following in the previous 2 books. Like we've gotten hints of their story for a while, so it was really nice to finally get that. And I am really glad that like it's a story that we had to wait for, because I feel like it made me want it even more. Like I was so ready for it because I'd really seen what their relationship was like before they got together. And it was kind of, I was like going into like how are we gonna make them have a good romance? And a good romance they did have. I really enjoyed it. It felt very like believable to who the characters that we've come to know are, and it was just an enjoyable experience overall. This was definitely my favourite book in the series. So Gus is a single dad. He does co-parent with Camille, however like the mum is his baby. However, she was away for the summer, so his daughter had to come and live with him, but he's running the ranch. He was really struggling to like keep afloat and get like actually like do things like laundry, like do his life properly basically. So Teddy came to stay with him to help, which he was very against because these two are like, they're not enemies because like they're just in a romance book, but like they don't like each other. Like they've got beef, they've always had beef. Like Teddy is the friend that Gus's little sister would hang out with and she'd always get in trouble with. Like that's the kind of relationship they have. So he was very against his daughter being looked after by her, but he gives in, and we basically see their journey over the summer, and it's really beautiful. Both of them are like just such big caregivers for the people in their lives, and it's so nice seeing them be able to look after each other. And yeah, it was just really beautiful in that way. And like 2 people that don't normally accept help, like accept help from each other because they have that understanding. Like yeah, it was really beautiful and definitely like a really enjoyable read. So we then come to the final audiobook that I listened to this month, which is The Murder After the Night Before. This was so good. Really, really recommend this to everyone. I thought this was going to be a bog standard like thrillery crime mystery book. No, it is so clever. So it obviously is largely around solving a murder. However, we also have like a lot about kind of what it's like to be a woman and how like women aren't believed and kind of like the patriarchy and things like that. So the story kind of is that our main character has just woken up from a night out at the start and her phone's dead. Like she's having a chaotic morning. She gets to work. She was at her work's Christmas party and they call her into a meeting, and basically it turns out that a video of her giving a sex act on the street went viral, and she's been doxxed basically. Like, everyone knows who she is and where she works, so she's like, she works like for a magazine, so it's kind of blowing up because obviously journalists have journalism degree. You get taught that you're using Twitter for work, like it is one of the main platforms for work, and that's kind of where she's blown up and having all of the issues. So from that we see her experiencing this, and then she realizes she can't find her best friend. She ends up finding her best friend dead in the bath. They live together basically, and the police think it's an accident. She doesn't think it's an accident. She has some evidence that would suggest it's not, but she's not taken seriously because of this video that went viral. And this is kind of becomes a theme of the book in that way, and it was really interesting, and I loved how it was done. The twist at the end like broke my heart, and it's so real, and it's something that so many women face. Yeah, absolutely incredible. So much more than a bog standard crime book, and I'm so glad that I listened to it. It was so, like, I was on the edge of my seat for so long because it took so many twists and turns. I was doing it whilst working, and genuinely, like, towards the end I was like, I don't know how I'm meant to do my work. Like, I was on the edge of my seat, listening ears open. It was so good, and I did end up giving it, I gave it 4.25 stars. I'm not too sure why I gave it 4.25. I think it was like, I just didn't really have like 5-star feeling, but I really did enjoy it. I think it was really cleverly done. Okay, so then I went into The Serpent and Wings of Night. This is a book that was on my Kindle TBR for a while, and I tried to read it, done a soft DNF of it, and then I went back into it. So this is a vampire based fantasy with trials. Trials is my favourite like trope type thing in a fantasy. I love them. I find them so interesting. So I was really excited for this book, and I thought that I would really enjoy it because of the trials basically. However, it didn't quite give me everything I wanted. I found that the chapters about the trials were really short and really like brushed over, and we were focused a lot more on like the time out of trials, or like trying to build the romance that was happening, but the romance didn't feel super strong in that time. So yeah, it was a little bit weird. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't my absolute favourite fantasy that I've read. I am going to carry on with the series, and actually another book that I read this month is Six Scorched Roses, which is the novella that comes between The Serpent and the Wings of Night and book 2 in the series. So I gave The Serpent and the Wings of Night 4 stars, and then I also gave Six Scorched Roses 4 stars. So Six Scorched Roses, that is so hard to say. It doesn't take place like in the same area, and it's not like part of the story. It is a separate story where you are still seeing kind of what has happened and what is going on in the main world of The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I really enjoyed Six Scorched Roses. It's super short, but it was really interesting, and especially because you start to learn more about the outside of what like the politics system is as well, and how humans are viewing vampires, because like there are humans and vampires in this world. It was really interesting. There's a girl basically trying to cure this illness. You don't really get a lot of information about the illness because it's only 180 pages long, but she's trying to cure this illness, and she thinks that vampire blood could do it. So there's a vampire that lives in the town that she lives in, and she starts meeting him basically to form this deal that she will get some blood in the exchange for roses, and we just kind of follow along and we see like a little bit of a romance forming, and yeah, it was really enjoyable. As I said, gave it 4 stars. Okay, we then come on to the final book that I read this month, and this has been a really quick wrap up, so hopefully there was enough detail. I don't know, I feel like because I've just read so many series. If you have any questions about the books I read, please let me know, because I do feel like I've gone through this super quickly. The last book that I read was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This was so good, so enjoyable. I gave it 4.75 stars. This is about Wynne and Beau, who basically meet at a Halloween party. They have a one-night stand. Wynne gets pregnant, and we then go on her pregnancy journey, and we see her interactions with Beau and how they end up going through this journey. It's really good, really good. I don't love this trope, but I loved it in this book. I think it was done so well. It was so enjoyable. I really enjoyed Hannah Bonham Young's writing in this. I really like that we see like different people, we see different representation. So Win has like a small hand and then Bo has a prosthetic leg. So it's really nice kind of just getting to see representation of characters that like aren't normally in romances. Normally we only have like this really buff guy and like this really gorgeous girl, and like they don't have any disabilities or anything. So it's nice to see just different representation in a story like this, and seeing them connect in different ways was really beautiful. The only issue that I had with this, and the reason that bumped it down from a 5 stars to a 4.75, is I just didn't like the ending. It started to feel a little bit rushed, and I don't like knowing everything that our characters go on to do. I would much rather like be able to think about it myself and not be told absolutely everything that these characters are going to do, absolutely everything about their relationship. So that just kind of ruined it for me. But yeah, this is a really enjoyable book, and I would definitely recommend reading this to anyone. Like, yeah, give it a go. I've got some more of her books now and I'm really excited to read those. But that is everything from me. As I said, just read a lot of series this month, so it makes it a little bit harder to talk about. But if you have any questions about the books I've read, if you've read any of these, let me know what you rated them. But yeah, otherwise I will hopefully catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!